Hey there guys, what's up? It's TJ. It's been a while, actually it's been a very long while. That's because I've been doing some stuff lately.
Come on.
Anyway, let's move on to what this video is actually about. I'm going to review my gimbal, the Moza Aircross, and all the gear I use to shoot videos with it. I really like this gimbal. It does exactly what it needs to do. In my opinion, a lot of these gimbals just work. They stabilize footage. And actually, these smaller gimbals work better in my opinion than some of the larger DJI Ronins and stuff when you use lightweight cameras. Because, well, they're made for some larger cameras, so if you put a really small camera like the Sony a6500 on it, it doesn't really work that well. So when you have a small camera, it might actually be better to use a small gimbal, a cheap one, instead of a $2,000 Ronin one. Still, there are some things I like and I dislike about this gimbal. So let's go over them real quick. The reason why I bought this one instead of a Zhiyun, for instance, is that it had some more stuff right out of the box. I have worked with the Zhiyun, I think. I've worked with it before on a shoot. It was a V2 and it works exactly like my Moza Aircross. The thing is, right out of the box, I got more stuff with the Moza Aircross than I would have got with a Zhiyun V2. And what are those extras, you might wonder? Well, the first thing is this small tripod that you can put underneath of your gimbal, so you can put it on a table when balancing or when you're just not shooting for a second. Sure, you can buy it, it's not that expensive, but with this gimbal, it just comes straight out of the box. And also in the case, the carrying case, there's a little pouch in it, so you can put it right there. Secondly, this gimbal comes with a cable, so you can connect your camera to your gimbal and you can stop and start recording with the button on the gimbal. Other gimbals have this as well, but they don't ship the cable with the product. Also, I use Sony, I use the Sony cable, but there's cables for a whole lot of other brands of cameras. Another nice thing is this 1/4-inch tripod mount on the side of the gimbal. Other gimbals that I know don't have this, they only have a tripod mount underneath the gimbal, but right on the side there, it really comes in handy, and I'm going to talk about it later in this video. So apart from it just working perfectly, it comes with some nice extras like I just told you. But there also are some things that I really don't like. My first and biggest complaint is the way you check your battery life. To check your battery life, you have to balance the gimbal and power it on. That means that you have to first install your camera on it, do the whole balancing thing, then power it on, then connect to your Bluetooth app, and then you can check your percentage of your battery. And that's just a way too big workaround. I think it needs to be much simpler. DJI and other brands have worked around this issue. They just make a little button you can tap on the gimbal. You don't have to actually power the thing on, and you can check with some lights how much juice you have left. Granted, a lot of other companies have this same problem, so I suggest you all work on that. Another small con is the knobs to balance your camera on the gimbal. They work perfectly fine, but they don't have a lot of grip. I was on a really cold shoot once, and I actually couldn't turn them because my hands were too cold and I couldn't rebalance my camera at all. I think if it would use a butterfly nut kind of thing, it would be much easier in the cold. And that was it for the cons already, actually. So as you can see, it really does what it's supposed to do. Then let's move on to the camera I use to shoot gimbal shots. I use the Sony a6500 and I think it's about the perfect camera for these type of shoots. It's lightweight, and if you want a really small, lightweight and compact gimbal setup, then you probably shouldn't buy a really big or heavy camera, because then you also have to buy a really big and heavy gimbal. For the lens, I mostly use the Sony 18-105 f4. It's a great lens, and the most important thing of this lens is that it has internal zooming, which means that once you have balanced your camera on the gimbal, it stays balanced, and you can put it to whichever millimeter you want. It will remain balanced until you rebalance it. A lot of lenses protrude once you zoom in, and that means you have to rebalance your camera on the gimbal. If you don't, you're pretty much hurting the motors in your gimbal. The next and usually last thing I put on this gimbal is a monitor. And I use a very small monitor. I use the Fieldworld 4.5-inch 720p monitor. It's fairly small, it's not 10 times bigger than the screen on your camera, but keep in mind that the screen on your camera is probably in some way blocked by the gimbal. So having an extra screen on the bottom of your gimbal really helps to frame up your shot. So I understand if you think the screen is a little too small, but in my opinion, it's really a great option if you're shooting with a gimbal. I do have to say that I went to IBC in September and I saw a really cool screen for not a lot of money. I think it was about $200. It was a screen by Best View, and I'll put the link down below. I haven't really tested it yet myself, but it really seemed like an interesting option, so you might want to try that one out or do some more research about that one. Link is in the description. Remember when I told you earlier that 1/4-inch tripod mount hole on the side of the gimbal really comes in handy for something? Well, let's talk about that. I put my monitor on my gimbal, and this is the perfect position to put it in, and you don't need a lot of grip to make this work. Let's go over it. I bought these two things, and one of these things is a cold shoe mount that you can screw into a tripod mount, so let's do that first. So this basically transforms the tripod mount to a cold shoe mount. Then you can use a ball mount like this one, and you can just slide it into the cold shoe mount, and this way you have a male tripod mount that you can move around since it's a ball head. Now just screw your monitor on the tripod mount and you can put it in the position you like. For the HDMI connection, I use this curved wire. It keeps the whole thing really compact, like the theme of this gimbal. But the nice thing is that it just doesn't stick out. As you can see, this system is really compact. I've seen a lot of other systems, but they're really not as compact as this one. There's almost no arm or anything, it's just right on the side of the gimbal, which makes it perfect. And there we go, that's how I shoot gimbal shots. Without any further ado, let's look at some samples. Et voila, a compact and reasonably priced, in my opinion, gimbal setup that I use all the time, and I think you should too, if you're not up to this. That's it for now, thanks for watching. I have some more videos like this one, so please check them out, and if you like them, consider subscribing. Bye bye!